Hey there, I'm a DIY track guy. This is my humble garage, and today we really got to get the Ecotec Miata on the road. In the last video, we finally got the car started, which was a huge achievement for me. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch the video. Better yet, watch the whole build series here. But before we can start driving this thing, we need to take care of a few finishing details and one big one. Oh, and apparently the algorithm wants me to ask you to like, subscribe, hit the notification, comment, share the videos with your friends so that we can grow the channel and I can keep making more videos like this. I made a couple of changes in here. First up is this heat shield that goes over the ignition coil plugs and wiring harness, just to prevent some of the heat from this exhaust from melting that stuff. Over here at the catch can, I realized that venting it to atmosphere is the wrong move. Notice how it was smoking really badly, so I just capped it and routed this line to the intake. Ideally, this barb would be installed in the intake pipe, but I didn't feel like drilling a hole in this. But I did feel like putting on some of this gold tape for a little bit of bling. Here we are looking at the underside of my fantastically stained stock hood. Believe it or not, this used to look a lot worse. Check out when I cleaned this thing up here. The job for now is to cut out some of this structural ribbing to make room for the front of the motor, which would otherwise contact here. Although that does reduce some of the crash structure, I'd gladly trade that off so I can close the hood. In the last video when I had trouble starting the car, I thought the fuel injectors might be stuck. So I ordered a new set of AC Delco injectors and here they are. So since we got them, we may as well get them installed. I was advised to apply some dielectric grease on the O-rings to get them to seat and seal properly. Toothpicks. Surprisingly useful around the garage. This is our fuel injector rail, and the fuel injectors are below it where the connectors go. And we need to remove it to install the fuel injectors, and to do that we need to first depressurize the system using this Schrader valve. This is a Schrader valve like what you have on your car tire. If we push the stem in here, it'll shoot the fuel that's in the rail out of this and make a huge mess, but it'll also depressurize the system, which is what we want. I gotta be sure to save these gas-soaked rags beside my newspaper collection in my basement. And here's the old fuel injectors. Notice that there's this bucket on the end, which also has an O-ring that I didn't know about. Ooh, that's really dirty in there. You recall that when I removed the valve cover and the timing cover, inside were a lot of carbon deposits, and I said that we'd do something later on about that. This is Liqui Moly Pro Line Engine Flush, and we're going to use this to hopefully clear out some of that carbon debris. This is the stock Miata splash guard that goes underneath the car behind the rear edge of the bumper, and its job is to prevent water from splashing up into your engine bay. Beyond that, it does create a low pressure zone behind your rad stack to aid in airflow and cooling. Unfortunately, this doesn't fit back on the car because the Ecotec Miata oil pan comes into contact with it in the area where I put these yellow paint pen marks. Also, since the sway bar has been relocated slightly forward, it comes into contact around here. Over here we have a separate piece of plastic that's riveted and bolted in, and I believe this is the stock oil drain plug access panel. And here it is, test fit under the car, and we can see that this flap is positioned quite nicely. It needs to come down about 40 millimeters or 1.5 inches. We just need to do something about this big gap. After using the wrong tool, we have this kind of bent up in the right shape. And we're reusing this access panel. I just trimmed a little bit off the sides, riveting it back into the existing holes and bolting it in here. And here's what the bracket looks like after a coat of paint. Let's rivet it on.
That's not going to get annoying, is it?
So now that we got those last few things out of the way, the final hurdle to clear to get this thing driving is an exhaust. Now, I did consider building one myself, buying a bunch of tubing, learning to weld, buying the tubing again, and after months of grinding through the process, end up with a half-assed final result. But if you haven't noticed, I live in Canada, it's late fall now, I really wanted to get the car on the road, driving around, enjoying it before the snow falls. So considering that, I need to find a custom exhaust shop to fabricate one for me. And that led me on a search of local muffler shops and mechanics garages that might be able to do this work, only to come up empty-handed. Either they didn't want to take a job like mine because it was too custom, too small, and too time-consuming, or the quality of their product didn't meet my expectation and vision of the car. And after much searching, my quest has led me here to Fusion Motorsport Fabrication in Pickering, Ontario. They've had the car for a couple of days, so let's go check it out and meet the owner.
Morgada. This is Fusion Motorsport Fabrication. We specialize in performance turbo kits and performance exhaust systems. So whether it be in stainless steel or titanium or aluminum, we hand build and craft custom turbo kits and exhaust systems, roll cages, performance parts for cars that want to perform better or go faster. We've been in business for 13 years, 5 years at this location here in Pickering. They can find us on Instagram at Fusion Motor Fab. They can also email us at sales@fusionmotorfab.com.
It's plain to see that the craftsmanship of Matt's work is of exceptionally high quality, and beyond that, his deep passion for cars, performance, and motorsport drive him and his talented team to create their products with meticulous care and attention to detail. To be honest, the custom 304 stainless steel exhaust system they created for my car is so gorgeous, I'm almost embarrassed sitting it beside all the zip ties, janky brackets, and safety wire used in the build. By far, it's the nicest component of the Ecotec Miata.
Now that we got that beautiful exhaust installed by the guys at Fusion, let's take this car out for its first test drive. Now keep in mind, this isn't going to be a full road test. I'll save that for another video, but this is just going to be my initial impressions on what this thing feels like on the road. Yeah, the exhaust isn't that loud, but it was intended to be that way. It's got a cat, resonator, and a muffler, so it's meant to be not a rowdy kind of exhaust, but more of a street driving one. Something that I built in my own garage, and YouTube is filled with some pretty awesome people who are experts, and we see awesome builds all the time, so much so that we might get desensitized to the fact that it's actually pretty complicated. Now, this is a pretty entry-level build for a Miata, so I don't think that this is anything amazing. I just feel a bit of pride, I guess, satisfaction. So let's talk a little bit changed out the differential for the torsion diff. I did put in the more solid or more rigid polyurethane bushing, so there is a lot of vibration coming from the rear. Now with the engine mounts being solid, or rather a polyurethane bushing that's pretty, got a high durometer rating, there's a lot of vibrations coming from the front. So I got vibrations from the rear, front, and the sound coming from the exhaust, all coming in here and transmitting directly into the seat and into my spine, which is actually pretty cool. So let's quickly talk about this Ecotec motor. As I said many times, this is a 2.4 liter one, and it's actually pretty good for what it is. It's got quite an adequate amount of torque and horsepower, especially considering that the motor that came out of this thing might have had 95 real horsepower. And what that means is that this motor has really waken up the chassis for me. It used to be just a really good handling car with a really weak amount of power, but now it's got a little bit more oomph to get it going. So I think that's enough for now. As I said, in the next one, we'll go into a more detailed look at the car on a longer road test. But at the moment, I'm just really happy this thing's working. You're awesome. I'm Useless. Thanks for watching.